triathlon, ultramarathon. Debbie Bulten has done it all. And recently, she finished climbing Mount Everest. Joe Tilley's Great Canadian Sports Show coming up. Our guest today was born in Montreal. She calls Cambridge, Ontario home. She was a triathlete, marathoner, ultramarathon racer, first Canadian woman to complete a 200-mile race, Ontario Ultra and Trail Series champion, North American Trail Series silver medalist, mountain climber. She reached the famed 7 summits. Among 19 mountain peaks recently reached the summit at Mount Everest. First Canadian woman to complete Everest and Lhotse in 24 hours. The 2017 Cambridge Athlete of the Year. Welcome to the program, Debbie Millichamp Bulten. Debbie, great to have you here.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I got you hot off the press too. Just back from Nepal, and it's awesome that you could do this. We really appreciate that. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a good feeling.
Oh, I'll bet. And we're going to get into the feelings more as we go along. But, I want to start with your running history. First of all, I know you ran in high school and probably before that even. But how did the running career begin, and what was it that attracted you to that sport?
Yeah, I've always been a runner. Something about the freedom of movement, I think, for me was what really attracted me to it. I started when I was a teenager doing track in high school, and then I progressed to marathon running in my 20s, which was kind of funny because I was so, I hated distance when I was younger. And I didn't know how to train for marathon running when I was in my 20s. So I did have a couple of injuries. And because of that, I started cross training. And then I was in the pool and I was riding my bike, and I really enjoyed having the variety, I guess, of multiple sports. That's when I started triathlons. And then I progressed into Ironman triathlons. And it actually wasn't until I did an H.E.R triathlon, which is an off-road triathlon, so you're doing mountain biking and trail running, that I fell in love with trail running. And then I just wanted to be in the trails, and I started doing ultra running at that point. And that's what got me into the mountains. And so I had the idea of how cool would it be if you could just go climb a mountain. So I actually climbed Kilimanjaro, and that's what kind of progressed into the whole mountain climbing, mountaineering career, I guess. And it's really interesting because I never would have foreseen starting the 7 summits where this me. And it's been a very organic process. It hasn't been intentional. It hasn't been me saying, yeah, I want to be a mountaineer one day. It just started as running and then progressed to the next sport, and who knows what's next.
Well, that's what we're waiting to see. What's next? But you've done 80 ultra marathons. One was 240 miles, 400K at Utah. How do you get yourself to a point where you can run that far, that fast?
It's actually not a physical thing. I think it's really about mental fortitude, and the mental training is probably as important or even more important than the physical training. Because after a certain point, your body will want to shut down. It wants you to stop what you're doing because it's uncomfortable. So your mind takes over at that point, and you just have to get into a headspace where you're able to keep yourself going. And so I find you have to really rely on your reasons why and your purpose behind it at that point, because again, you're going to want to stop. Your body's going to want to stop you doing what it perceives as being uncomfortable. So your mind has to take over. So how do you get to that kind of place? Just keep doing it. In training, I put myself into some very uncomfortable situations so that I am training my mind to work through those and to be able to keep going when you really want to stop. So I find it's really more mental than physical for the long stuff anyway.
So when you're running, when you're climbing the mountain, are you thinking about what you're doing at the time? Are you in a meditative state? What kind of, how do you get yourself to that point where because I know the voices in there say, you know what, you've had enough, go home. Right?
Am I meditative? I guess I kind of am. Like I have a couple of mantras that I use just to keep me going, like to keep fighting. And, I keep telling myself, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's really for me, the purpose is growth. Like I find there's so few opportunities in life where you can have that amount of growth and self-awareness in such a short amount of time. So for me, I just keep thinking, okay, it's about pushing forward. It's about growing. It's about learning new things about myself, about the environment, about my situation, about other people, and really connecting to something deeper, because it really gets you in the moment. You're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about the traffic jam you were in the other day. You're not thinking about sort of your day-to-day rat race type stuff. You're in the moment. You're connected with nature. You're connected to something pretty profound and deeper. And so that's where the sort of mental aspect comes in, is how do you connect and to keep yourself going. Meditate, sure. I don't really call it meditative. I just call it growth.
Hmm. Hmm. So it's you, but I'm sure there's a lot of mental preparation and physical preparation, of course. Obviously as a high level endurance athlete, you were physically prepared to climb mountains, but how did you prepare specifically for this climb?
This one was a little different. I mean, I've always prepared for my ultras and the mountain races and my mountain climbing with doing lots of hills and going to, I mean, the best preparation for a mountain is on a mountain, because it gives you a simulation of, how your body is going to react and the muscles you're going to use. And again, getting into you were saying that meditative state of just one foot in front of the other, it can be pretty monotonous, just the endless climbing. And some days can take you 15, 20 hours you'll be in the mountains for. So yeah, the training for this one was a little different, where I did a lot more mountain training and a lot more elevation. So I would go to ski hills, local ski hills, because here in Ontario at sea level, we don't have mountains. So ski hills had to be it. And it was just the slog day after day, hours and hours every day with a heavy pack on, climbing up ski hills. And then once a month, I would go and have a big effort somewhere on a mountain. So I went to Colorado, I went to Utah, Arizona, the Adirondacks. I went several times, and just get yourself on a mountain and just keep doing hill repeats on a mountain to get your legs and your body and your mind ready for how long you'll be doing that kind of effort for. And then the pack is for strength, because your legs, all the muscles have to work in a certain way when you're climbing a mountain. So again, just getting you as close to that environment as you can, and just keep doing it day after day after day. So this mountain specifically, although you have sort of a base level of fitness that you always have, this mountain specifically, I trained for almost a year, and it was elevation, elevation, elevation. I probably climbed about 200,000 feet of elevation getting ready for this Everest climb.
200,000 feet. That's a lot of feet. It's a lot of elevation. We saw you with the picture there of you at Mount Chicopee with the weighted backpack on from the piece that from Kitchener, CTV Kitchener did on you. I want to talk about the 7 summits, because this was the culmination of the 7 summits which you had already climbed, the tallest mountain peaks from each continent, which were Mount Kilimanjaro, Tanzania, Mount Elbrus in Russia, Denali in Alaska, formerly known as Mount McKinley, I guess, Aconcagua, is that the correct pronunciation? In
Yeah.
Argentina. Yeah, not bad, eh? So Vision Massif, Antarctica, maybe, more or
Mount
less.
Mount Vince in
Okay.
Antarctica.
Yes, yes, yeah. And then Punkak Yaya in
I actually did
Oceania.
Kazi in Australia.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I missed that one too. So so there's 7 peaks and there's 7 continents, and now you're the last one is the tallest one, Mount Everest, the tallest summit in the world. Were you a little bit nervous heading to Nepal?
Absolutely. Nerves were kind of swirling around for months before I left. I think it's just because it's an unknown. It was just so much higher than anything that I'd ever climbed before. And I didn't know how my body was going to react to that kind of altitude. I didn't know what kind of environment I would find myself in. So I think it was just fear of unknown more than anything. And yeah, you're always nervous before you do something big like that. Like, how is it going to go? And there was, I think, expectations I had because it was the culmination. It was number 7. I wanted it to go well. So yeah, I was pretty nervous before I went. But I think once you get there and you get settled, the nerves kind of just go away, and you just sort of do your thing, what you're used to doing, what you've always done. And yeah, so I think the nervous part was before, and then I was actually quite relaxed when I was on the mountain because it's sort of my space, and I was able to connect with the nature and something deep. And so yeah, I wasn't really nervous when I was on the mountain. It was more before.
Right. Yeah. As a former amateur boxer, I remember climbing up the stairs into the ring every time, and I was always nervous, always nervous. But once you get in there and you're doing your thing, the nerves tend to go away. CTV Kitchener interviewed your husband Dave while you were
Did.
gone, and this is what Dave had to say. Let's listen to that, Vic.
And she would go up and down Chicopee, and we'd all think, oh yeah, she'll go up and down Chicopee. No, no, we're talking 5, 6 hours.
So there you go, 5 or 6 hours at a time at Chicopee. So you physically you're getting ready.
Well, that was sort of a regular day. Yeah, I trained every day. So my regular training days would be a lot of Chicopee work. And yeah, it could be 5, 6 hours sometimes, but then my long days could be 12 hours, 15 hours, 18 hours sometimes. So yeah, my daily grind was Chicopee, which is only 15 minutes from the house. It's a local ski hill. Yeah, that's where I spent most of my days. So whenever he'd want to find me, he'd actually just drive over and find me on the hill.
So you and Dave celebrated your 33rd anniversary while you were over climbing Everest. So what was that like, that moment?
It's the third time that I've been away on my anniversary, and I swore after the last time that I never would be away again on my anniversary. And I was thinking, well, it's possible. Like summit window can open up as early as like the 10th of May on Everest, so it's possible I could be up and back down and home by the 19th of May. As it turned out, no, I wasn't home. We went on our summit push. We left for our summit push on the 19th. So that was my poignant moment. It's like, okay, my anniversary is today, and we're going on this big adventure. And I actually did call him, but yeah, he had to go for dinner by himself.
Well, judging from what I've seen from Dave and the report and everything else that I've read on the postings and everything else, it sounds like he was okay with it. You were doing something that was really important to you.
He has been my rock throughout this. I would not have been able to do it without his support. He's so into it, and yeah, he does the updates, and he phones people, and he's sort of fielding all the stuff back home, and he really enjoys that. But he also really loves supporting the efforts and sort of the reasons why we're doing this, and hoping that it can bring people together, and it can perhaps encourage other people to go and do pursue dreams that they may not have thought possible. So that's kind of a deeper meaning for him as well. To support is to hopefully encourage people to also live out your dreams and don't be afraid to pursue things.
So we have a mutual friend, Steph Carre. He was on April 24th. He sent me this picture, and he's the one who let me know what you were doing and told me about this and said this might be a good idea. And I think for sure it is. This is from Dave here. It says, "Here's a glimpse into what Debbie Millichamp Bulten is doing today." So what part of the journey are you at here?
That is in the Khumbu Icefall. So there is a stretch from the bottom of the glacier to our Camp 1 position at 19,300 feet, where you have to go through this icefall, which the icefall is basically a slow moving river of ice. It shifts about 3 to 4 feet every day. So it's just these massive ice chunks that are about 2,000 feet high, 2,000 vertical feet high. So you have to make your way through the icefall across massive crevasses and in between all these ice blocks. So those ladders and the ropes are your means of traversing your way through the icefall. So that's kind of a typical day where you would, take 6 to 8 hours to get through the icefall. And you would, cross ladders, climb ropes, like dodge these big seracs. And really the name of the game is efficiency in the icefall. You want to move as efficiently and quickly as possible. So typically our days would start at 1 a.m. because it's in the dark, the ice is the most stable. When the sun hits it, things shift a little more. So our days would start really early, and hopefully we'd be through the icefall by like lunchtime. But yeah, you'd have to traverse those multiple times up and down to get through to the upper camps.
And that was to Camp 1, right? Yeah, that's the first to reach Camp 1. Is that correct?
So our base camp is at about 17,500 feet, and our camp one is approximately 19,300 feet. So yeah, you'd have to traverse through that ice fall each time you wanted to get to camp one. So we did 3 different rotations to the ice fall. So we'd have to pass up and then pass down that ice fall multiple times in a rotation. And each time you'd pass through it, it would change. So at one point there was a ladder that was just 1 ladder across. The next time we went through, there was 2 ladders across as the crevasse opens up. The next time there's 3 ladders across. The following time there was 4 ladders across. So it's different every time you go through there. Wow. And that's part of why you want to be efficient and quick, is because things can shift rapidly. So yeah, each time you go through, you're not really sure what you're going to get because it's going to be different every time.
Yeah, a moving ice river that changes all the time, and you have to go up this thing several times. So yeah, a couple of days later after Stefan posted the first one, your husband Dave said you made it through the Humbo. Is it Kumbo? Kumbo ice fall to reach camp one. And there's the posting. So you're talking here about, being in a freezer, sleeping in a freezer. How cold was it?
At night, it would get really cold. We could be looking at -30 at those lower camps. The ambient temperature during the day, like when the sun hits, so this is a picture of Camp 1, and this is the Western Coombe, just above the Coombe. So the ambient temperature there during the day actually gets so hot that you could be in just a couple of short, long sleeve layers. But as the sun descends and it goes behind the mountains, it just plummets. So yeah, you could be looking at -30 at night. So when you're staying in a tent, and I was in a tent by myself, so it gets really cold. There's no means to warm yourself up. So, and again, you're out there, like I was on the mountain for 2 months. So it's day after day for multiple months where you just can't seem to get warm. So it does feel at a certain point like you're living in a freezer because there's just no way to find warmth. You can put layers on, and again, I mean, during the day you would have the sun, but as soon as the sun would go down, it was really cold. And it was a very cold season, and it was a very snowy season. So even at base camp, where it's typically warmer, it was still -10, -15 at base camp, which is unusually cold.
I guess, do you ever get used to it? I mean, do you ever get to a point where you get used to it?
I think so. I mean, there's no way to avoid it. So again, I think the more you try to fight against it, the worse it is. So it's just accepting your situation. It's just like anything, like even the mountain, like, your days are going to be hard. They're going to be long. There's going to be a lot of suffering. And I think the more you fight against that, the harder it makes it. So if you just accept it and you sort of reframe it in your mind that there's a purpose behind all this, and there's a purpose behind the suffering, somehow you just become okay with it. And I actually didn't mind it. Like I don't mind the cold generally if I'm prepared for it and I have the proper clothing. And I think part of it is making sure that you have proper self-care. So at night, you wouldn't stay in damp clothes. Like make sure you have dry socks, make sure you have comfy down boots, and you've got a change of clothes so that you can stay dry. And I think being prepared is part of it. But yeah, just accepting the situation, not fighting it, is probably the best way to go, because you're going to be there till the end unless you want to quit, but I don't have quit in me. So,
well, you can fight it or accept it. And I guess the easier way is to accept it. So we have a short video here this is crossing a small gorge, and it looks like you have to be pretty careful here. Vic, if we could roll that pick 4 video. Here we are. So tell us what's going on here.
Ice field. So there's multiple ladder crossings that we have. So this is the one I was referring to, where it's only 1 ladder at this point. As the season progressed, We've got 2 ladders, 4 ladders. And actually on our summit push, when we left base camp to try to get to the upper camps for our summit push, this area collapsed. So all the thorax surrounding the crevasse collapsed. So we had to reroute around this section because it was too unstable. So they will rope ladders to the ends of the crevasses, and you try to position yourself in the middle of the rung so that you're stable enough, and you hold the ropes and lean forward a little bit for stability. And that's how we have to cross the massive crevasses through the ice fall.
So on April 29th, let's move on to the next picture, Vic. Dave posted some pics about some photos. And at this point, he said the team has been staying at base camp in order to recover and rest. We may assume that is great, but actually it's difficult and very straining. Deb is suffering from a strained neck. She's not being able to sleep. Had to take some meds. Wouldn't be able to hope things turn around. A lot of people there coughing. Um, One member of the team had to be evacuated by helicopter because of a blood clot. All this plays on your psyche, of course. Deb sounded bitter today. Her resolve is standing firm, not impressed being frozen all the time. She wrote, getting up in the middle of the night and getting all the winter clothes on to march to the outhouse, only to realize your whippies are frozen. Yes, even toothpaste freezes. There it is. Yeah.
You, especially on a long expedition like this, is staying healthy. It's very difficult to stay healthy for that length of time because you're intense with people. And yeah, the coughing illness this year was rampant. There were a lot of illnesses. Even on our team, we had almost half of our team either take ill or had issues like the blood clot having to be evacuated. So yeah, staying healthy is probably your biggest priority and concern. I was sick a number of times. I had a GI bacterial infection. I had a respiratory infection. I had that cough. I had a cold. We had what we think was COVID kind of running through our team at the beginning. One of our team members had it, didn't know he had it, but was tested positive. And so 5 of us ended up getting sick, which we're assuming was COVID. So you're just kind of working through these issues as best you can. And self-care is a priority. And it sounds sort of elementary. Okay, make sure you eat, make sure you drink, make sure you're kind of doing your head to toe checks. Like, is there anything that's sore? Is there anything where I'm getting blisters? But it's difficult at altitude because your body doesn't recover at altitude. It's kind of a harsh environment to try to recover. You don't get stronger at altitude. The longer you stay there, you actually start deteriorating. So yeah, staying healthy is a big concern. So I know he's referring to the neck. I had some kind of neck issue that kind of attacked me, and
right.
I wasn't able to head or my upper body. So I was actually in a neck brace, and I was on anti-inflammatories and painkillers and muscle relaxants. And I thought, geez, is this it? Like, am my expedition over? And just being patient. I think patience is the biggest virtue on an expedition like this, because so many things can happen over that length of time, and not jumping the gun, not saying, okay, yeah, I think I'm done. Just being patient, waiting it out, trying to, make sure you do your self-care. And so, yeah, the neck issue kind of resolved itself, and we sort of continue on, and the next thing attacks, and then you work through that, and then you continue on. And so, yeah, there was a number of things that we had going on within our team and myself personally on that length of expedition. But it all turned out okay in the end.
Well, when I was reading about this stuff and following the post, it reminded me of the Stanley Cup final and how beat up the players are by the time they get to that game 6 or 7 or whatever it is. Stanley Cup. Everybody's playing with pain. Everybody's beat up. Everybody's been through the ringer. And now, but you know what? The goal is in sight. So you keep trudging along, and there you go. So here's the May 1st update. Debbie and the team left directly for Camp 2 at 1:00 today. Ominous task. She has meds for her shoulder and neck, which you referred to. Trust she can persevere through the Kumbo icefall once again. They'll spend a few nights at Camp 2 and endure an acclimatizing hike to Camp 3, 23,950 feet on the Lhotse face before returning to base camp. Now, an American climber died right near the camp where you're at in Camp 2. How do you handle news like that when you know that actually it can be fatal, this journey?
It's always a real possibility that something will go wrong in an expedition like this. I think it's not something that you dwell on. Like I'm not a risk taker per se. I'm actually kind of risk averse. So I don't do these things wanting to assume the risk, but there is always an inherent risk when you go into a mountain that something could happen. It could be something out of your control. It could be an avalanche. It could be conditions. It could be weather. It could be a health issue. So that individual did have a health issue. And he unfortunately passed away at Camp 2. He was right in the camp beside us. So it's something that does happen. You just can't dwell on it. Otherwise, I think that fear creeps up and you just wouldn't do it. We had we had one of our team members passed away near the end of the expedition. And it's a very sad event to live through. And I think it really brings home the fact that it is risky, and you have to accept that risk and know that it exists, but don't dwell on it. Because I think that is begging for trouble if you dwell on risk. You just have to focus on what and what is in front of you and do the best you can, and don't take unnecessary risks.
Right. You're committed. You're all in. And here we go. So here we are, May 5th, another crossing. This one is much longer. You talked about the ladders being longer at different days. And it's the same gorge you said, but it's obviously shifted.
Yeah, so this is the same area as the previous video where there was one ladder, and now we've got 3 or 4 ladders tied together. So it just shows you the progression of the ice fall, how it keeps shifting and those crevasses keep widening. So the next week, it actually was even less than a week, this was the area that collapsed. So the ice blocks kept shifting, and the seracs actually collapsed in on each other and fell into that crevasse. So we had to find, or I was actually telling Vic earlier that there is a team of Sherpa called the Icefall Doctors that maintain the route through the icefall. So they bring the ladders up, they maintain the ladder, they go through on a daily basis sometimes to make sure that the Khumbu Icefall is still safe for travel. So when this area collapsed, they were the team that went in to find a reroute around this area. So we were actually going for our summit push, and we were told that there was a collapse. We had to turn around and come back to camp, and it was the next day that we went up again. And there was a reroute completely around this area, so we didn't even go in this area again. So yeah, it just shows you how volatile, I guess, is the word, that the Khumbu Icefall can be, that it just shifts daily.
And what's below you there as you're climbing across that ladder?
It's probably 200 to 300 feet of blank space. I couldn't see the bottom. It's like some of those crevasses are so deep you can't see the bottom. So when you're going across the ladder, my focus is not on what's underneath me. It's actually on the rungs of the ladder. Because if you look down, that's sort of when your stomach can kind of go queasy and the fear comes. So my focus is on the rungs of the ladder. So yeah, if I were to look in that crevasse, it would just be blank space, and I really want to know what's down there.
So obviously you don't have a problem with heights.
I don't typically, no. I've been skydiving before. I like cliffs, and I'm not really afraid of heights now.
Yeah, clearly, I guess that would have to go out the window as you do this. So getting closer now, we got some pics from the Camp 2 and 3 rotation, and at this point, you're getting closer. And what are you thinking about now? Like, what are you thinking? This is almost there.
No, I try not to think too far ahead. I like to break it up into little bite-sized, manageable pieces. I think if you think about the journey as a whole, it becomes overwhelming. So for me, it's kind of one camp to the next camp, which really is day by day. And sometimes it's broken down into, okay, step by step. If it's a long day and if it's a tough day, sometimes I have to break it down to even smaller pieces and say, okay, I just have to get from that serac to that serac, or I have to go from this hill to that hill, or, that camp to this camp, and breaking it up into smaller pieces. And I think because this has been such a long expedition, 2 months, you can't think of it as I'm almost there, because you're not almost even though, so that picture was coming up to Camp 1. We're still at least 6 days away from the summit. So that's much too far in my mind to be thinking about, almost there. I'm just thinking about getting to Camp 1. And then once I'm at Camp 1, then I think about, okay, the process of getting from Camp 1 to Camp 2. And then from Camp 2 again, Camp 2 to Camp 3, and just breaking it up into smaller pieces.
So you guys took a helicopter ride to grab what you called as thick air. And while that was happening, the Sherpas prepared Camp 4. Talk about the role of the Sherpas on your team and the support that they provide.
The Sherpas are amazing people. They are the heroes of the mountain, I want to call them. So they do a lot of the work as far as getting the camps ready and getting supplies up there, getting oxygen up to Camp 4. So our job is to climb and to get our own supplies and our food up to camp. And then the Sherpas' responsibilities are to create camps. So they go ahead of us. So when we got to base camp, our Sherpa team had been there for probably 3 or 4 weeks creating camp. And from that point, once base camp is established, then they'll go and establish Camp 1. And then we'll do our rotations to Camp 1, and then they'll establish Camp 2. And so they're always ahead of us as far as like the work that they're doing. They're just an incredible species of people, and they are physiologically different from us because they live at high altitude. They have the ability to work in the mountains and to have the speed in the mountains that we just can't get. And so we're using supplemental oxygen at a certain point, but they weren't, and they were moving at the same pace as us. And you're looking at them thinking, man, like, how is that possible? They're just incredible people.
So the conditions change all the time. You have to reroute your plans all the time. You talked about the ice changing, the ice river. And so you had a surge that had to be put on hold, your setback. You said it was emotionally challenging. You called it a sufferfest. Tell us about that.
So that was when we had gone through our rotation. So the rotations are to get your body ready for a higher altitude. So the idea of a rotation up higher on the mountain is to go to an altitude that you hadn't been to before, sleep at that altitude, and then come back down to a lower altitude to recover. So we had done a couple of those rotations, and we were now acclimatized and ready for a summit push. So you gear up, you get all your stuff ready, and I think mentally I was a little nervous for this one because it was like the last one, and yes, summit was 7-8 days away. So you gear yourself up, and we got to the ice fall, and that's when we were notified that there was a collapse in the ice fall. So we had to turn around and go back to base camp. So it was almost like you're being dangled this candy, and then the candy was snatched away. So it was hard to get myself back in the headspace of, okay, go back a bit to base camp, unpack, sleep the night, wait the day, and then try to make a push the next night. So it was like gearing yourself all over again for this next push. So once we left camp that following night, that was the beginning of our summit push, and that was sort of our 8 days to the summit and back. So yeah, I think it was just more a mental struggle because you're expecting something and it didn't happen. So then you're like, it's a letdown, and then okay, you got to gear yourself back up again to get ready to do it all over.
So the between Camp 3 to 4, final rest before moving to Camp 3 to 4, an area referred to as the death zone. Tell us why it's referred to as the death zone.
So the death zone is any place 8,000 meters approximately and above. And it's an area where there isn't sufficient oxygen in the air to sustain human life. So you can't stay in the death zone for any length of time. The death zone is a tough place to be. Your body doesn't recover or rebuild in the death zone. It sort of deteriorates at a rapid rate. So it really becomes a test in mental fortitude at that point because you're not sleeping, you're not really able to eat, your digestive system is shut down. Everything is just so uncomfortable, and your breathing is struggled, and because you're hypoxic and you're struggling for oxygen, your muscles aren't working properly. Your body isn't normal, doesn't feel normal. Your brain is being starved of oxygen, so you're not thinking as clearly, and so everything is just strained. So yeah, the death zone is not a place that you can be for any length of time. So we do use supplemental oxygen in the death zone. And the amount of time that we were there from the time that we got up to Camp 4 at 26,000 feet to the time that we descended was 4 days. And that was on supplemental oxygen. So any more time than that, and you just deteriorate too rapidly and the body just can't accommodate.
Even the Sherpas would struggle there?
The Sherpas were on oxygen as well. Yeah, I mean, they are human, so they feel it too. And again, no one can be at that altitude for any length of time just because of what it does to your body physically. It starts to cannibalize itself because it's not you're not digesting food, you're not sleeping, so you're not recovering. So your body goes through a very tough struggle to try to just keep going. So whether you're Sherpa or us, mere mortals, we all feel it. So yeah, it's not a place that you can stay for any length of time.
And the weather has to be perfect, and it was good weather at Camp 4, which you have to have before you make it.
We were very fortunate on our summit day that we had beautiful sunny skies and very low wind. But about 12 hours prior to this picture that I can see here, we had a snowstorm that raged through camp. And we weren't even sure if we were going to be able to do our summit push and then it just died. So we got up and it was 1 a.m. clear, and it's not windy. So we went and we actually had a beautiful summit day. It was almost perfect. And there was no one on the mountain. We had it virtually to ourselves. There was no one on the summit with us. So you couldn't have asked for better. And to your question, if the weather has to be perfect, ideally, yes, because with the altitude of Everest, like the top of Everest is in the jet stream. So if you have any kind of wind going on there, you can't be on that upper mountain because there is a very narrow summit ridge that there's a sheer drop off on either side of 7,000 feet. And the summit ridge in some places can be 3 to 4 feet. So any kind of wind would just, blow you.
Whoa.
So yeah, definitely idea. And that was the reason why we waited. We actually waited a week in base camp before our summit push to wait for that weather window, to wait for that, perfect day. And there is a very specific science in the weather forecasting. It was daily, sometimes hourly. And yeah, if the weather isn't good, you don't go. That's sort of a written rule.
Well, I tell you, the weather forecasting has certainly improved from many years ago when Dave Duvall used to write on the weather boards, the acrylic backwards. So here's an update from Dave. A magnificent photo taken from neighboring Lhotse a few nights ago. Camp 4 is in the center, and you can see the route by the headlamps of the climbers straight up the famous Hillary Step, then along the ridge to the summit. How incredible the humans can be at this place. The very highest ridge in the world. Debbie and the team should be on that ridge in 6 to 8 hours. Getting closer. And then on May 24th, and here we go. Debbie Millichamp, Bulten, Everest update, summit success. Debbie has been confirmed, reaching the summit of Mount Everest, 29,032 feet. Absolutely marvelous news. I'm elated for her and so relieved. She is safe and sound in her tent at Camp 4. Okay, so there you go. You reach the summit. What is that like when you that moment?
The actual moment is a very short space in time. I mean, really, it's all about the journey to get there. So yeah, you're celebrating. You think, okay, wow, I finally made it here. But you can't celebrate yet because the most treacherous part of that whole climb is actually the descent. So yeah, you have your moment. You feel great, but you also have to realize that you can't celebrate until you're actually at the bottom of the mountain because it's a pretty dangerous descent to come from the top. Like you've got a lot of adrenaline and you've spent a lot of energy, and so you're not as you just don't have as much gumption to get down
you're
afterwards.
Beaten up. You're beaten up.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So you have to recognize that the celebration happens afterwards. So I mean, you are elated and you are excited, and it's sort of the accomplishment that you've been going for. But really, for me, the happiness came afterwards when I actually got down safely, and then I could sort of process, that whole journey and what happened. And even now, when I look at pictures, I know what happened, but sometimes it's hard to believe. Yeah, the moment is one moment in time, but it's really more about all the moments that happen before that. For me, that's really where the joy comes from.
So Dave also commented at the time, safe and sound in her tent at Camp 4. Thank God so very much. Thank you, and each and every one of you, family, friends, loved ones. The support, interest has been humbling. More updates soon. And then he referred to the danger of descent, and because the Kumbo ice field is changing all the time, you don't know where you're going to expect. Could be terrifying. So then tell us, the moment, 7 summits, one of only 22 Canadians to accomplish that task. What did that mean to you?
That was pretty pivotal. Like I said earlier, I could never have envisioned where this path would have led me when I started the 7 Summits journey. And it wasn't even an intentional thing. Like, this has been a very organic process. When I first climbed Kilimanjaro, I really didn't even know what the 7 Summits was. So it wasn't until I dived deeper into it and thought, wow, okay, traveling around the world climbing mountains, how amazing. And to actually have completed that journey, it's a pretty amazing feeling. But I wonder what's next. I don't know what's next. I think I just need to have it come to me.
Well, what was next was right away, right? Because Lhotse, right?
Yeah, so that was after the next day. That was only a couple of hours after we summited Everest. And we got back in the tent, and we left at midnight that night to go climb the fourth highest of the mountain, which was neighboring Lhotse. That was actually an extremely tough day. That was tougher for me than Everest was, because it was a very long day, and because you're so tired after doing the effort of Everest the day before. And it's a different mountain. It's very steep. It's very exposed. It's really windy, and we didn't have such a perfect day on Lhotse as we did on Everest. So we were kind of dealing with the elements, and it had snowed again the night that we were leaving for Lhotse. So there was about 2 feet of fresh snow. So every time you would take a footstep, you would sink back, and so it was just so much more work trudging up this steep Lhotse face. So yeah, that was a very difficult day for me. But yes, accomplishing that, of course, was something that I could never have envisioned even when I went to Everest. I mean, that was in my mind. It was sort of an effort that I wanted to try to do, but it was a game day decision. If I wasn't feeling right, if the weather wasn't perfect, if certain events didn't happen, I wasn't going to do it. So I left the tent that night thinking, okay, we'll just make the effort, and if it doesn't happen, we'll just turn around and we'll come back. And I think when you're up there, though, things change. And you sort of look around as the sunrise comes up, and it's for this epic moment that you'll never get again. And I really wanted that moment. So we just continued, and we got to the summit. And then I realized that that's a Canadian first. No Canadian woman has done Everest and Lhotse back to back like that in 24 hours. So again, I know it happened, but it's still sometimes hard to believe because it's just I have to process it still, I think.
Did you know right away that you were the first Canadian woman to do both summits in 24 hours?
I did. At that point, I did. Yeah. So when I first signed up to do Everest, and I decided that I wanted to do Lhotse as well, I didn't know at that point that it hadn't been done. It wasn't until I was well into my training process that I just thought, hey, let's look up how many women have summited Lhotse. It turns out there's 4 Canadian women before me that have summited Lhotse, but none of them have done the Everest Lhotse combo. So then I thought, okay, that's something that is a good goal to shoot for. And at that point, then I started training a little bit more for elevation, started doing more hills to kind of get my body ready to do 2 major efforts back to back. So it really wasn't until probably 3 months before I left that I knew that it hadn't been done before. But it sort of created a new fire in me, I think, for training.
We have a video that you took from the top of the world. What's going through your mind when you're taking this video? Vic, roll that.
I wanted to take it all in, and it's so hard to take it all in because there's just so much. And it's hard to kind of grasp the magnitude of, what you've done and even the size of the mountain that you're on when you're actually on it. And so I wanted to try to get this visual and even pictures and videos. Sure, you can see, sort of the surrounding area, but you just can't get the feeling behind it. And it wasn't until I was on Lhotse actually the following day, and I looked back because you get a very clear view of Everest when you're at the summit of Lhotse. And it wasn't until I looked back that I could see the full Everest pyramid that I thought, wow, that is just such a massive mountain. And just the magnificence was kind of breathtaking. So I think here my mind is just trying to capture what I'm actually seeing and to try to remember it in the future, because I think there's just so much going on, and yeah, the emotions are so high, and again, you're kind of hypoxic, so you don't know if what you're actually seeing is really happening. So this was just sort of my effort to try to remember the future, what I was seeing in that moment.
Yeah, are you feeling at this time it's worth it? It's worth it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the process, though. I love the training. I love working out. I love sort of the challenge of setting a new goal and then planning it out. I'm a real planner, and just, shooting for it. And so I think for me, yeah, it was definitely worth it. Would I do it again? I think I'd like to do different things now and sort of, again, like I was saying, organic process. I want something to come to me and say, yeah, that would be really interesting, and to kind of tackle that. I don't want to necessarily set my sights on something and then say, yeah, I want to do that. I want it to sort of come to me. So yeah, I think anything I've done has been worth it because it's all been a learning process for me. And it's brought me to places that I probably wouldn't have gotten to had I not pursued it. So for me, that's sort of the journey is learning and developing and growing and sharing that with people, sharing it with my kids, sharing it with my husband, encouraging younger people to get into the sport. There's women in this particular sport and in a lot of sports are underrepresented. And so for me, if I can encourage and inspire younger women to get into this sport, that would be a win for me. So yeah, the process has so many facets to it. So yes, it definitely is worth it. Would I do something like this again? Absolutely. I kind of relish the future because I don't know what the future holds, and I really look forward to that.
You mentioned that the challenge versus men versus women when it comes to the sports that you excel at, particularly ultramarathon, mountain climbing, doesn't seem to be much. There's no distinct advantage for a male in those particular sports, is there?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not a size thing. It's not really a muscle thing. Altitude is kind of the great equalizer when you're on a mountain because altitude sickness can hit anybody. You could be the fittest person on the mountain and you could still succumb to altitude sickness or some other health issue. You were referring that earlier, our teammate who developed a blood clot, he was extremely fit and the blood clot kind of took him by surprise out of nowhere. So, I mean, it happens. So I don't think there's really an advantage necessarily physiologically male versus female. Altitude will hit anyone. I just think it's a field that women haven't really pursued yet. I mean, the percentage of women on mountains is between 3 and 5%. So we are a very small portion of the people that are on that mountain. So if somehow a younger person or even someone my age, any female sees this and thinks, hey, that's something that'd be really cool to do, that would be a good feeling for me to kind of help inspire people to get out and do things. And just, I think it's very important to have dreams, whether, those dreams are, it doesn't matter how big they are, how unattainable they may seem, just have your dreams and honor yourself by doing whatever you can to fulfill those dreams. And don't let male, female, or, area that you have to travel to, or just don't let those barriers prevent you from pursuing your dreams.
That's pretty awesome. So it's said that the reaching the summit of Everest changes people. This is how your husband Dave put it when he was interviewed by CTV Kishner.
Any climber that comes back from Everest is forever changed physiologically and psychologically for the rest of their lives. It's going to be the same wife, just better.
So are you the same wife, just better?
I'm the same wife. I'm the same mom. I'm the same person I was. I think it sort of has lifted. And again, like I was saying, barriers. Like there's no barrier to what you want to do except your own self-imposed barriers. So I think this just gives you the confidence to say, hey, like no goal is too big. And so if you want to pursue something, just make it happen and be methodical and be patient and go through the process. Trust the process because there is a process. But no goal is too big to have. And I think, he said it pretty good. Like you are the same person, just now you're open to more possibilities.
No goal is too big, not even the tallest mountain on the planet. So I want to go back to Dave for just a second here. So, because I understand he's quite tall, 6'9", and he plays in a Pink Floyd tribute band called Have a Cigar.
He does.
That's clearly true.
He's my rock star.
Yeah, literally. So tell me, where's Have a Cigar playing next?
They just played last weekend at a local place in Cambridge. They're playing in Waterloo next Thursday night, I believe. They play all over the place. They play in Toronto. They'll go as far as Windsor, Sarnia. They'll go up north. They play outdoor festivals. Anywhere they can get a gig. They just love playing. They just love playing the music, and they love interacting with people and having the crowd, sing with them. And so they'll play anywhere they can get a gig.
Well, we'll have to get out and see Dave play. That'd be awesome. What do you take away from that climb to Everest? It's like all everything you put in, everything. Did you get out of it? What you put into it?
I think I got much more out of it than I put into it. You go there with a goal to climb a mountain, and you come back with so much more. It's the experiences that you come back with. It's like I was saying earlier about this growth and this self-awareness and development. Like there's just so much that happens when you're on the mountain that you can't even foresee experiencing until you come home and you think, wow, that was kind of epic. And, the reason why you do this stuff, and I'll just describe this one moment on the summit push to the top of Everest, where the sunrise came up. And that sunrise might have been 10 or 20 seconds, but it was this moment that spoke to this huge effort. And that sort of is the reason why, for me, I do a lot of these things is for these moments that you just can't get or you can't connect with in your day-to-day life. And so, yeah, I think there's got to be your reason why and your purpose, doing things. And I think you find it and you hold on to it, and that's what propels you to do the next thing. And I think what I went with and what I came home with, and that's what Dave said, like you're changed, like you are different, and your experiences will change you. And I wouldn't trade them. I think, yes, it was definitely worth it. And I hope I can now show my kids that there is, I think what you come back with is way more important than what you go with. And just find your reason why, hold on to it, and just keep moving forward, like just constant forward progress. And I've definitely changed. I'm definitely different, but I'm still the same.
Awesome. Rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence, I'm thinking. And literally, you had to be there. You had to be there to understand, right?
You have to be there to experience.
Yeah. So, what is the best advice that you've ever received?
Oh boy. To trust myself. Because I think there's always going to be doubts and questions. And, even when I was on the mountain, there were times that I just didn't know if I could do what I had set out to do and if my body would do it. I was having a lot of troubles with my asthma. And I thought, geez, can I actually do it? And I think you always have to come back to trusting yourself and believing in yourself. And my husband is the biggest proponent of this. He's, like I said earlier, he's my rock. Like, he just says, trust yourself. You can do it. You haven't been to this place before, but when you were at the place before that, you hadn't been to that place before, and you did it and you trusted yourself. So now that you're in this place, go through that process again, trust yourself, get to this place, and then move to the next place. And so I think just have the confidence to believe in yourself that you can do it. Other people can sure encourage you and they can believe in you, but I think the most important thing you can give yourself is to believe in yourself.
And look at the place it takes you. Eh? Isn't that great? Mm-hmm. Listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to share this incredible journey with us. And it's been awesome. Really enjoyed this. Thank you, Debbie.
Oh, thank you very much, Joe. I really enjoyed this.
Okay, we'll have more sports when we come back. Thanks, Deb. Joe Tilley here. My wife Penny Claire and I recently took an amazing trip to Egypt and Jordan with Trip Oppo. And here are our top 10 must-dos. Number 1 on our list is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Standing before the massive structure, I couldn't help but imagine what life was like for the ancient Egyptians who built it, and how they managed to construct such a remarkable feat without modern technology. We rode a camel and felt like we were transported back into time to ancient Egypt. And of course, we snapped some photos with the Sphinx as well. I would highly recommend that you book your next trip through Trip Oppo. Call them today. My Costa Swiss pick of the week. Last week, I took 3 horses in the $1 million final of the Pepsi North America Cup 40th edition. All 3 finished in the top 4. I said to watch for Scott Zeron and It's My Show, who was leading the way heading into the stretch. Fulton was second for a good portion of the race. Confederate made a late charge, passing Fulton, but It's My Show holds on to win it. A thrilling victory for Zeron, who wins the NA Cup for the second time. And how about the trainer? Linda Toscano, conditioner of both the winner, It's My Show, and the third-place finisher, Fulton. After going winless as a 2-year-old, It's My Show is now a perfect 6 for 6 this year, owned by Richard and Joanne Young. The 254 trifecta returned $75.90. Here's what the winning connections had to say.
I knew exactly where everybody was sitting too. Fulton was giving me a hell of a run in the last turn, and then I figured Timmy had to be right behind him with how great Confederate is. So I knew it was going to come right down to the finish.
So sweet to get your second, as mentioned. But Scott, take us through the race. You made that move to the top. Were you expecting it to be more of a throwdown going to the half?
Well, the thing is, my horse can leave faster than anything I really ever drove, and then at the same time, I could calm him down if I ask him to. So I was confident that I could start him up as hard as I did. It was able to seat a bunch of horses, and then I knew Yannick would be leaving with a better angle from out there, and honestly, to get away second was best case scenario for me. So to be able to remove and control it from there was great.
This is where you cut your teeth. You're back here at Woodbine Mohawk Park. So many family and friends. How sweet is it?
This is my favorite race. It always has been. And to win it twice now, and I just have to get Richard Young to get me the trophy. I want the trophy bad at home.
He's an amazing horse. You know, he disappointed me so much last year that at the end of the year, I said to Richard, why don't we just castrate him? I can't be this wrong about the horse. And he's come back and he's been nothing less than perfect.
You've had an incredible career. Where's this going to rank?
It's when you can win these kind of races, this is what you do it for.
Okay, there you go. This week, I'm looking at Thursday night's second race, $20,000, 3-year-old filly trotters, grassroots starters. I like number 5, Southwind Chardonnay with Tyler Burt driving. And let's go with the 4, 5, 6 Exacta and Trifecta box. For all the racing updates, visit Costa TV on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Go to hpibet.com for your wagering options.
Joe Tilley Sports is brought to you by COSA, Central Ontario Standardbred Association, providing a united voice for harness horse people racing at Ontario tracks. Check out your benefits today at COSAonline.com and check out COSA TV on Facebook and YouTube for all the latest harness news and live action updates. Live racing year-round. Go to hpibet.com for all your wagering options. Become a member today, and your first bet is free. That's hpibet.com. Addiction Rehab Toronto, Toronto's #1 alcohol and drug treatment center, saving lives, reuniting families. The only treatment center in the province to offer medical detox, treatment, sober living, and lifetime aftercare all in one place. Our unique and specialized programs are designed to equip our clients with the tools to successfully lead a life of dignity, respect, and purpose. Let us help save your life or your loved one's life. Call today for more information or to facilitate an intervention. 1-855-787-2424 or visit addictionrehabtoronto.ca. Guests on Joe Tilley Sports receive a gift certificate from Classica Imports. Top of the line imported men's clothing. Check out the Classica Essential Collection now. Go to shopclassica.com.
And we want to thank all the folks who make this show possible. These are friends, trusted business associates, and all-around great people. We highly recommend them all. A reminder that the show is available on iTunes, Spotify, Breaker, Radio Public, Google Podcast, Pocket Cast, as well as the Spanglish Network, Zingo TV, and Buzz TV Live. Also, check out our show on YouTube. All the great past shows are there. There's lots of clips and shorts. Like and subscribe. It's absolutely free. Thanks once again to Debbie Bulten for being on the program. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Do you want to buy or sell a home? Could 31 years of real estate experience help you? Why not speak to an amazing team that loves to overpromise and overdeliver? Aldo has a tremendous team of experts on staff. They are committed to making your next real estate transaction smooth and comfortable. Call 416-GET-ALDO or visit getaldo.com. Brian Gribben Insurance Planning, helping you solidify your financial future.
At BGIP, what we do that's unique in the marketplace is we show people how to spend and enjoy their money in their early years of retirement without the fear of running out. Also, we're able to do this without you having to change financial advisors. Please look us up at bgip.ca today. Let's book a 30-minute phone call to see how we can bring value to you and your family in your planning.
Call Brian today for all your retirement needs. We did. 905-686-5678.
MNP, a leading Canadian national accounting, tax, and business accounting firm. MNP proudly serves and responds to the need of their clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. Through partner-led engagements, MNP provides a collaborative, cost-effective approach to do business and personal strategies to help people and organizations to succeed across the country and around the world. With local offices in Oshawa, Mississauga, Burlington, and more, their team is here to support you. Visit mnp.ca today to learn more.